Hey, everybody. It is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Oshwanunu here in Bentonville, Arkansas.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to.
Mosh, rumor has it you almost shut down all of the music at every Walmart store in America. What are you getting into over there?
Okay, so for those of you not familiar, I'm here in Arkansas at Walmart headquarters because it's their Shareholders Week, their Associates Week. You might have seen some of the coverage over on Instagram as well as Premium. And I actually gave the Premium people a scoop on this. So I was doing an interview, and you'll hear a bit of the interview later in this podcast with the executive vice president of Walmart. And they're like, oh, you can use our podcast studio. And they had this huge mixing board in it that was playing music. And I was like, okay, I can't have this music going on the speaker in the studio. So I brought down the levels. I found the board and I was like, all right, I'll just bring the volume level down on the board. Unbeknownst to me, Jill, the button I brought down actually controlled the output to, I am told, every Walmart in the country. So when you hear music in a Walmart, apparently many of them are going off of this Walmart radio feed. There's a Walmart radio station because, Walmart, as you'll find out later in this podcast, is the equivalent size of the 22nd largest GDP in the world. It'd be the 22nd largest economy in the world. So it has everything. It has a radio station. And then somebody comes in later and they're like, oh my God, why is this down? I'm like, oh, I just brought it down because it was blasting in here and I can't tape my interview like this. Yeah, this goes out to everyone, but lucky for you, we broadcast from multiple locations. So the hour you brought it down was not the hour it was coming off this board. But if you had done it an hour earlier, we would have gone mute on the loudspeakers all the Walmart. So rest assured, if you're in Walmart today, the music didn't die. It was not the day the music died at Walmart. It's just my latest near miss because if you recall, some of you, we were at an Amazon fulfillment facility in New Jersey, one of the larger ones in the country, Black Friday, and I almost hit the string that shut down the line for all the boxes because I was trying to take some video for all of you, and I got a little too close. But again, I didn't shut it down, and I didn't delay any packages for Christmas. You can't blame me if something came late. But anyway, Jill, I'm gonna ask permission next time before I press a button.
More importantly, I'd love to know how they choose the music for all of the Walmarts. Who is the DJ?
I need to find out. I mean, there's so many questions. I actually posed this question to the premium audience. What questions do you have for Walmart? And given that Walmart has 2.1 million employees on Earth, 1.6 million in America, there is someone who does that job, probably someone's. I have not met them yet, but I will ask around to find out. So one of you asked, is there subliminal messages in the music to get us to buy more stuff? I will pose that question for all of you. Buy more stuff. This is the cheapest it'll ever be.
Mosh, when Zach Morris puts subliminal messaging to get all the girls to want to date him.
Wow, Saved by the Bell reference. Jill's going way back to the early 90s there, folks. The one thing I was going to say is casinos are well known that they choose carpeting, they choose a temperature, they choose music. They don't have windows. The layouts, casinos are well known to create an environment that makes you gamble more. And so it's a good question for the folks at Walmart. I imagine they're not going to be like, oh yeah, no, you got us. We totally do that. And in fact, the one thing they insist on, and Jill will get to it later in the podcast, is that they, even with tariffs, are making the commitment to continue to have the cheapest prices on everything. So we'll talk about that.
No, Mosh, they're going to be like, no, we play light music from the 80s, 90s, and early aughts and today.
Jill, I think Sean Kingston was on the list. Remember Sean Kingston?
Reggae?
It was sort of pop music, right? Sean Kingston had beautiful girls.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. Me Love. Anyway.
All right, let's get to some news.
Yes.
Because I know where this could go. All right, starting overseas, it is looking less likely that Russia and Ukraine will make peace anytime soon. The latest from President Trump's conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Also, the latest on the big, beautiful bill, the newest holdup in the Senate.
And the latest from Elon Musk as he just goes scorched earth on his former buddy, Donald Trump. Will tell you what is being reported inside the White House right now.
To the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder, Colorado, the Holocaust survivor who was burned in that attack is speaking out as a judge blocks the deportation of the suspect's family. Plus, 2 Chinese researchers are charged with smuggling a biological pathogen into the United States, how they allegedly did it, why one of the New Orleans inmates who escaped from prison is pleading to President Trump for help.
Welcome to 2025, where a escaped prisoner gets on social media and he's like, Mr. President, I would like a pardon.
We also have some headlines from Moshe's trip to Walmart's headquarters in Arkansas and a preview of his latest interview with the EVP of the company.
Yeah, great conversation with Dan Bartlett. We'll have a preview for you. Look out for the full interview in the next day or two.
Shocker, Americans unhappier than ever. And apparently solo dining might be a sign. I feel like most parents would kill to go to a restaurant by themselves.
Sounds like a dream. Sounds like a
Glass
dream.
of wine.
I think it's not about like once in a while. I think I think the issue is that people are doing it too frequently.
Plus, Moshe is on this day in history.
On this day in history, Jill, we believe this individual took the day off.
I mean, challenge
where
us,
we're going.
Moshe. Come on.
All right, listen, what do you want? I'm going to Marriott in Bentonville, Arkansas.
You're better than that. Not the Marriott in Arkansas.
Not that there's anything wrong with the Marriott. I'm just like, it's been a long day, Jill.
Okay, let's start with the war in Ukraine, which is looking no closer to ending. President Trump said yesterday he spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin for more than an hour on the phone, and that Putin is planning to retaliate against Ukraine for those drone strikes against Moscow's strategic bomber fleet over the weekend. Trump wrote on Truth Social that they had a good conversation, but, quote, not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. We also learned from Russian officials that Trump said on the call that he did not know about Ukraine's plans to conduct those drone strikes ahead of time. Notably, though, Trump has not condemned the strike by Zelensky, which took out more than 40 Russian warplanes and reportedly did more than $7 billion in damage. President Trump's phone call with Putin follows a second round of peace talks on Monday between Ukrainian and Russian delegations. So Russia, again, is insisting that it will end the war if Ukraine surrenders more territory, promises not to enter any military alliances like NATO, and accepts severe restrictions on the size of its military. Ukraine, meanwhile, calling for an immediate unconditional ceasefire, the return of Ukrainian children taken to Russia, no international recognition of lands that were conquered by Russia, and also freedom for Ukraine to join Western organizations like NATO. So, Moshe, not looking like either side has a lot of wiggle room here.
No, at least not if they can't get in the same room on an equal playing field. And Jill, just a reminder here that Russia controls about 20% of Ukraine, about the size of Pennsylvania or so. And in a deal, they want even more of the land that they've already invaded and taken control of. Ukraine not having it. That said, Ukraine may budge here. And end this war if they could get those security guarantees. Now, the big concern for Ukraine is even if we give up that land, Putin's history shows that he will invade us again in just a couple of years once he replenishes his military. So they want security guarantees. Well, with the Trump administration, they're like, no, we're not putting U.S. troops here as a security guarantee. So the Europeans are like, we'll put troops there as a security force. That's something Putin doesn't want to allow. He also doesn't want Ukraine to be able to build its weaponry back up and its military back up. So Ukraine's like, yeah, that's not a deal we really want to take here. Now, the big thing to watch here is that you did have that unprecedented strike that Zelensky planned for more than a year and a half over the weekend, that drone strike where they smuggled drones into Russia. They hit bases more than 2,000 miles away, taking out, again, 40 major military planes that Russia's been using here. So Putin has to save face and respond, which apparently is what he told Trump on that phone call. So that's happening, and remarkably, they're still talking about a ceasefire deal. Zelensky, again, has proposed, can we just have an unconditional ceasefire and stop this war and then begin negotiations? Putin, not interested. He said Ukraine's run by a terrorist that targets civilians and is losing the war, and so he's dismissed the idea of meeting Zelensky one-on-one. And remember, the U.S. here has really been trying to play neutral, though Trump is apparently frustrated with both of them, though he still hates Zelensky more than Putin. This goes back to the first term when Zelensky wasn't willing to investigate Biden in the way that Trump wanted to back in his first term. And you have seen here, policy after policy where the U.S. is stepping back from its support of Ukraine. That included yesterday Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth decided not to attend a meeting of a group that the U.S. itself created during Biden talking about security support for Ukraine. So he avoided the meeting of the group that the U.S. created. Britain and Germany were there, and they say they're going to provide 100,000 drones or so to the Ukrainians here. The bottom line is, how long can the Ukrainians last? What else do they have up their sleeve here? Because without major U.S. support and weapons, Putin likes what he's seeing on his end, and he would like this war to keep going.
Now to the latest on President Trump's big, beautiful bill, which appears to be in a bit of trouble right now. So the Senate is taking up the bill this week, and Republicans currently do not have the votes. You might remember the U.S. House narrowly passed it before Memorial Day. It comes as Elon Musk continuing his criticism Wednesday, writing on X, "Kill the bill," and in another post, simply with the movie poster for the film Kill Bill. You can't say he's not creative.
No, listen, if you follow Elon's X account, and it's one of the things we do here at Mo News, so you don't have to, there's like 24 messages with him just like going after the bill, making jokes about it, and it's starting to irk folks in the West Wing.
It's not good to make an enemy of somebody who owns a social media platform.
Jill, who are we talking about here? Because Trump has a social media platform and Elon also has a social media platform.
So I was talking about Elon Musk, but as I said it, I was thinking, well, technically both do. I think more people are on Twitter, though, or X than True Social.
Like by like
exponentially,
100-fold, whatever. True Social, literally the only point of it, as far as I'm concerned, is to see what Trump posts there. But nonetheless, Elon, not a happy camper right now, and he's letting the world know it.
Right. He's actually urging Americans to, quote, call your senator, call your congressman, saying that this budget package will bankrupt America. It comes just a week after Musk left the White House. He was leading the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, a federal cost-cutting initiative. He was dubbed First Buddy.
Yeah, him and Trump, they were buddy. He was on the plane all the time, sleeping at Mar-a-Lago, at the White House in some cases in the beginning, like every day of the week. Remember when he got into trouble with Tesla? Trump bought a Tesla and made a whole show for him. But Elon now has gone rogue.
So this bill would unleash trillions in tax cuts and slash government spending, but not enough, apparently, as it's now estimated it will also spike deficits by about $2.4 trillion over the next decade. This is according to an analysis released Wednesday by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. It would also leave about 11 million more people without health insurance. Republican leaders in Congress, determined to muscle this sweeping package forward, had little to say after Republican senators spent time at the White House. One lawmaker said it was a robust afternoon discussion with President Trump.
Robust. Washington speak for
Rowdy?
Things aren't great.
Tense?
Tense could be another word. Robust is like the very polite word. We had a robust
It was
conversation,
a robust
which is
conversation.
like, Mr. President, like we disagree on a few things. That's the robustness for you. But I imagine details probably eking out overnight, and we'll have more for you on the Instagram feed today. The goal right now for Senate Republicans is to pass legislation before July 4th recess, when they go on vacation and back home for a few weeks. And ultimately here, with some changes from the Senate, that'll mean it'll go back to the House, which only passed this by one vote. So this is going to make for a very difficult situation for Republicans here. Also coming up, well, Jill, our favorite time of year, it happens several times a year now, the U.S. borrowing limit was moved to mid-July. And the federal government could default on its bills if they don't raise it. So we're coming up against one of those deadlines, not a government shutdown deadline, but a government defaulting on its loans deadline. Here, Senate Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes, but many more Republicans right now speaking out. And certainly Elon Musk giving them cover to speak out here as well. Elon, is not insignificant in terms of his influence, given his following. And when Elon Musk tells, 100 million people on X to call their senators and congressmen, some will listen. So you have Republican senators like Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Mike Lee of Utah. They're calling for deeper spending cuts. Then you have senators like Josh Hawley of Missouri, Jim Justice of West Virginia, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine. More Republicans. Now they're concerned about the proposed Medicaid cuts here. So some are saying not enough cuts. Some are saying we don't like what you're cutting. But of course, Medicaid is one of those significant programs where it's hard to replicate cuts if you take away the cuts on Medicaid. So one of the things here, Jill, is what is Trump thinking? Because he has not replied publicly to Elon, at least not as of this recording. According to reports, though, from inside meetings with Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, he told colleagues yesterday in a closed-door meeting that Trump is, quote, pissed off with Musk. The Wall Street Journal reports that Trump is losing patience with Elon Musk. Musk, of course, is irked extra because over the weekend, Trump dropped his nominee to be the NASA administrator. Sort of did it last second before the Senate was going to vote for him. He had significant support, a former astronaut, a guy named Jared Isaacman. Musk apparently telling people around him, I gave $300 million to get Trump elected and help Republicans, and I can't even get my NASA guy through. So apparently, the latest sign there of a fraying relationship, Trump booting Isaacman because it turned out that Isaacman had donated to Democrats in the past. Notably, so did Elon, so did a lot of people. By the way, do you know who donated to Democrats in the past? Donald Trump. Yeah. Like he donated to the Clintons. So it's funny that was the excuse there, but I think it was sort of like a poke at Elon Musk being like, I don't need to put your guy there anymore. So there was always this uneasy alliance. Jill, we need to look back at our predictions podcast because we both made predictions as to how long the bromance would last between the richest man on earth and the most powerful man on earth. And I forgot what we each predicted, but it appears date of death. Like, you know, what do they say at a hospital?
Time of death.
Time of death. Time of death. I would say that tweet from June 3rd.
1:31 p.m. Eastern Time, June 3rd, to be exact, Moshe.
There you go. We'll declare it there, Jill. But apparently, we were expecting this. And now that Elon's gone, like, not just like said, I don't like it, but it's just like tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet. This could get very interesting in the next couple of days. We might wake up to some interesting True Social posts by Mr. Trump.
Something to look forward to, Moshe.
Jill, start get the bag of popcorn in the microwave now.
All right, time for the speed read from NBC News. The 88-year-old Holocaust survivor who was burned during an attack by an Egyptian man armed with a makeshift flamethrower in Colorado over the weekend is speaking out. Her message for the rest of America: we're better than this. In her first public statement since Sunday's attack on a group of Jews who were on a weekly walk to advocate for the return of Israeli hostages, Barbara Steinmetz telling NBC News that what happened, quote, has nothing to do with the Holocaust. It has to do with a human being that wants to burn other people. She said that she and other members of the group Run for Their Lives were peacefully demonstrating when they were suddenly attacked. She still appeared to be rattled by the ordeal. She said it's about what the hell is going on in our country. What the hell is going on? Asked if there was anything more she wanted Americans to know after the attack, she said that she wants people to be nice and decent to each other, kind, respectful, encompassing. She says, we are Americans. We are better than this. That is what I want them to know, that they be kind and decent human beings. She was among a dozen people who were injured in the attack carried out by a 45-year-old Egyptian national named Mohammed Soliman.
Yeah, we've been telling you about Soliman. He remains in custody facing federal hate crime charges, facing attempted murder charges, several hundred years in prison, Jill, if he's convicted. But he also has a wife and 5 kids who came to this country with him a couple years ago. And the White House has been saying in the last couple of days that they want to deport that family immediately. They have technically overstayed the visa, but though they do have an asylum claim pending. So a federal judge in Colorado yesterday temporarily blocking the Trump administration from deporting the wife and the 5 kids. The judge, his name is Gordon Gallagher. He was appointed to the bench by Joe Biden, actually. He wrote that the administration, quote, shall not remove the woman. Her name is Haim El Gamal, and the 5 kids until there are further rulings on the case, adding that an immediate deportation would create irreparable harm to the family. So a hearing is now set for next week. We should note that El Gamal claims that she was shocked to learn that her husband was arrested for having committed a violent act. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, has said that she is investigating what the family knew. Remember, he has been planning this attack for a year and a half. So they think it's remarkable that she wouldn't have known anything about what he was up to. The children, we should note, are between the ages of 4 and 17. We told you in yesterday's podcast that the eldest, a daughter, had just graduated high school, and he actually postponed the attack. He told authorities this until after her high school graduation, given what he thought might unfold here. Jill, sticking with immigration and deportation policy here, a significant announcement late on Wednesday from Donald Trump. He has announced a new travel ban affecting a dozen countries set to go into effect this upcoming Monday. This might remind you of the Muslim travel ban from the first term. He has announced that as of Monday morning, The following countries, citizens from the following countries, are banned from entering the U.S. Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, and new restrictions for Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. He says it's in the interest of national security and the people of the United States. A reminder that travel ban in the first term had a lot of legal issues. Eventually, the Supreme Court upheld elements of it. In 2018, you can imagine there'll be lawsuits again here. But significant announcement, this travel ban, this has been expected for a while now, since January. We'll see how this unfolds. That, again, impacts a number of countries there starting on Monday.
From CNN, 2 Chinese researchers were charged with smuggling a biological pathogen that they planned to study at a University of Michigan lab last summer. According to a complaint filed Tuesday, the researchers were charged with conspiracy to commit offense or to defraud the U.S., smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, and visa fraud. The U.S. Attorney's Office saying that the suspects brought in the fungus Fusarium graminearum from China, and I do not know if I pronounced that correctly.
I'm sure, Jill, somebody will leave us an audio note on Instagram today with the proper pronunciation of Fusarium graminearum. It's like a Latin. I think you're allowed to pronounce it how you want to.
I think it's just about the confidence. You had more confidence than I did, and it sounded more correct. So it's described as a potential agro-terrorism weapon that can cause disease in certain plants like wheat, corn, rice, and barley. The FBI says it's responsible for billions of dollars in economic loss worldwide each year. The 25-page criminal complaint does not allege that the defendants, who investigators say were in a relationship, had any plans to spread the fungus beyond the laboratory. However, according to the affidavit, one of them did try to bring in multiple samples of the fungus during a trip with a tourist visa in July of 2024, hiding it in his backpack inside of tissues because he knew he was not allowed to import it. The tissues apparently concealed a note in Chinese, a round piece of filter paper with a series of circles drawn on it, and 4 clear plastic baggies with small clumps of reddish plant material inside.
Yeah, so apparently when one of the guys, Lou is his name, was questioned at Detroit Metropolitan Airport in July of last year, he claimed, I have no idea what these are. Like, that's crazy. Then eventually, under further questioning, he admitted that he intentionally hid the samples, planned to clone different strains at the University of Michigan lab. Jill, you're a Michigan alum. I imagine most students probably unaware of things like this happening or potentially happening on campus. The charges do come, as we've told you, that the Trump administration is looking to revoke visas for Chinese students, alleging things like this. They're doing stuff on behest of the Chinese government, potential wrongdoing. Jill, what's crazy about this fungus is wheat and corn, 2 of our largest exports, and so the fact that could have spread here in the U.S., that could have done a lot of damage if it got out. And as we know, things that happen in a lab don't always stay in a lab. So we'll see what happens next, especially, again, as the administration is looking at canceling visas for a number of Chinese students.
From Mo News, a man who identified himself as one of the New Orleans jail escapees posted videos on social media while he remains on the run. He says his name is Antoine Massey. He posted 2 since-deleted videos on an Instagram account at 007 Chucky on Sunday, where he pleaded for help, including from President Trump, the rappers Meek Mill and Lil Wayne, and rapper NBA Youngboy, who Trump pardoned last week. Take a listen.
I'm not a raping man. I'm not none of that. None of that. I'm a good person.
Massey faces charges of rape, kidnapping, domestic violence involving strangulation, violation of a protective order, motor vehicle theft, and domestic battery. His mother and pastor confirming that it was, in fact, Massey in the videos.
Jill can't predict this one. And apparently authorities super happy he did this because it's given them a whole lead to get to him. Because remember, when you record a video, they can potentially know the IP address that you use, the location. They can figure out a lot about you. So authorities think that they are now closer to getting him after he released this. Some background on him. He has escaped from prison a couple times. And he was part of that group of 10 last month that escaped the New Orleans jail. 8 of them have been recaptured. He's one of 2 that are left that they need to bring back to the New Orleans Parish County Prison. Remember that they threatened a maintenance worker to turn off the water so they could remove a toilet and then sneak out behind that. And again, he's apparently escaped a couple times now. He has broken his ankle monitor. A bounty hunter who owns an ankle monitoring company told a local news outlet that he isn't worried about Massey, despite the charges of assault and the various things we laid out there. He's more concerned about the other guy who's left on the run, a guy named Derek Groves. Apparently that guy is a convicted murderer and remains on the run. Apparently the bounty hunter made the call. He's like, Massey, just come back to jail already. You've done this before. Time for you to come back, is what the bounty hunter literally told a local media outlet. So the videos prompted the police to search a home about 2 miles away from the jail where they believe the videos were filmed. So it does not appear he's gotten very far. Jill, I don't anticipate Donald Trump pardoning him despite his pleas here.
Well, you do never know, Moshe.
We do live in unpredictable
times. It's been a crazy year.
But I don't think this video is going to work for him.
All right, some business news from Bloomberg. Walmart says it will continue to communicate the impact of tariffs with investors, consumers, and policymakers after President Trump criticized the company's plans to raise prices. Dan Bartlett, the executive VP of corporate affairs, telling reporters, including you, Moshe, quote, "We do not aim to be a political figure. We are providing facts as they come." This all came during a response to a question about tariff discussions at the company's annual shareholders week in Bentonville, Arkansas. The president blasted Walmart last month on social media after the retailer said that it would raise prices of some goods in the wake of new tariffs. Trump said Walmart should, quote, "eat the tariffs" rather than passing its increased costs onto consumers. Bartlett said Wednesday that Walmart is looking to be consistent with what it shares internally among employees and externally to the public.
Jill, it's fascinating to be here right now as they are figuring out what to do. A reminder that the largest private employer in the world, the largest private employer in America, in fact, the only organizations with more employees than Walmart globally, the Chinese military and the U.S. military. They are the largest grocer in the U.S. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year there. They would be the 22nd largest economy in the world, so almost crack the G20 if they were their own economy or country. I joked with Bartlett during our conversation yesterday. I was like, do you guys have your own foreign policy? You're in 18 countries, etc. He's like, are you interested in being our Secretary of State? I'm like, absolutely, if you have that position. But they're trying to tread very carefully here. The word that they're using is complex. They said the environment right now is, quote, complex. They're hoping for predictability and certainty. Again, it's hard for them to plan otherwise. And a reminder that some of these tariffs are in effect. Some of these tariffs are postponed until next month temporarily. So what happens then? And notably, Bartlett is a former George W. Bush advisor. He was a senior level advisor in the Bush White House. And he's been at Walmart for now more than 10 years. So he's got some perspective on this, the government-private relationship, though he even said, this is very different. Trump has a very different way of doing things, again, being very polite, than George W. Bush. So remember that Walmart made headlines last month saying, we're going to have to raise some prices here. I asked, he told you to eat it. How much of the tariffs are you eating? And he's like, listen, we're doing our best right now to not pass along or raise prices for consumers, but ultimately we don't have a high margin business. It's very interesting, actually. They have more than $600 billion a year in revenue, but their profits are $15 billion. So just, a couple percentage points there. Still a significant number, of course. But I asked him a bit about this, and you'll hear it in a full podcast in the next day or two as we put it up. But I asked him, do they need to raise prices and how do they go about that? And one of the questions you guys had for me that you wanted me to ask them, which is, how do we know you're not gouging us for profits? This is interesting. Here's a bit of how he explained it.
There's radical transparency into every day we have to justify the prices because it's a hugely competitive environment out there. And we also have to disclose on a quarterly basis what our margins are, what our revenue is, top and bottom line. You can quickly do the math. I mean, at the end of the day, we generate a lot of revenue, no doubt. We're the Fortune 1 company.
It was $15 billion in profit last
year,
right?
Yeah. But based on $680 billion in revenue. So the fact of the matter is our margins are razor thin. I mean, 3.5%, 4% margins across our company right now. So hard pressed to think that in that kind of environment that we're gouging people. Quite the contrary, because it's not in our ethos or our DNA to do that. I mean, our whole business succeeds when we're able to lower prices, not raise prices. That's the unique model. It's why Walmart became such an iconic retailer, because Sam Walton and the team that were here 40 years ago realized that instead of trying to trick customers with sales and this and and promotions and all that is like everyday low price. Like, it doesn't matter when I go to Walmart, I know I'm going to get the lower price. If they trust you on that, they'll repeat the business over, and that the volume goes to a certain level. Then it spins a flywheel that reinforces that. And we built this company on that philosophy, and we wouldn't throw that away in a moment like this to have some sort of temporary margin increase on the backs of a tariff environment. Quite the contrary. We're trained to do the opposite.
So look out for more, again, from our conversation on a variety of topics, since Walmart has so many touch points in the economy, Jill, including how they're incorporating AI and how they think in the coming years, AI will get so smart that it'll start to just order things automatically for your house. You won't have to go to the store ever again. AI will just be like, it looks like you're coming low on detergent. There's going to be smart elements of it. And one other thing that he mentioned, and we get into it, this is why you should listen to the podcast, we will be in a scenario in the coming years where, like, literally someone will deliver the Walmart goods to your door and then put it in the cupboard and the refrigerator for you.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Didn't Amazon, by the way, try something like that with those, like, the tabs that you were able to press?
You press the button. Yeah, I think they did. I think they're finding a different way to do it with AI, where AI will, like, do reminders and, like, know exactly how often you buy something and just, like, automatically.
And finally, from the New York Times, Americans are making too many solo dinner reservations. That was one takeaway from the annual World Happiness Report, which showed that the U.S. has dipped to its lowest slot in the country rankings, 24th, after being ranked as high as 11th in 2012, which was the first year of the report. Americans are increasingly miserable, and the report is exploring a possible indicator: the number of Americans who are eating alone. It has risen exponentially this century. According to government data, in 2023, about a quarter of Americans reported eating all of their meals alone the previous day. That is an increase of 53% since 2003. One of the authors of the report says the extent to which you share meals is predictive of the social support you have, the pro-social behaviors you exhibit, and the trust that you have in others. The trend, not surprising, even more pronounced among young people. For American adults under 25, there has been an 80% increase in dining alone. Actually, it is surprising because you would think young people would be more social and eating meals with each other.
You would think, Jill, but this goes with a number of the trend lines we've been talking about on this podcast and on the Instagram feed, that younger people are spending less time with other people. They're spending more time gaming, more time on social media, both activities typically done alone these days, less dating, less sex. We're seeing this across the board in terms of trend lines among Gen Zers here. And so you have the situation. Eating alone increases political polarization, increases kind of people doubling down on their views, socially isolated. We're not testing our ideas about the world with other people. We're just canceling people who don't agree with us. We're not having these conversations. And so, let's say this contextually, Jill. We're still the 24th happiest country in the world out of like 200 countries. So we're in the top 10%, but definitely dropping from 11 to 24th. Give this report credence for what you will, is not insignificant here. And this decline here, this declining happiness, declining social trust. We also trust our media less than everybody else. Not that I'm going to blame the media here for this, but it ain't helping. And so, there's a number of trend lines, just overall lack of trust in society, in government, in companies, in media, and apparently in one another.
A little depressing, no?
It's a bummer. It's a bummer, Jen. I think that we definitely have mental health concerns when it comes to the youngest generation here, and we do need to, as a society, figure out what we can do. All right, we end here with On This Day in History. On this day in 1947, the U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall outlined the famous Marshall Plan to rebuild Western Europe after World War II. On this day in 1968, while running for president, Robert F. Kennedy was fatally assassinated this day by Sirhan Sirhan in the Ambassador Hotel in L.A. RFK would die the following day. Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian who was very upset about RFK's support for Israel. He, by the way, is still in prison to this day, serving life in prison in California. On this day in 1981, the CDC releases a weekly report describing a rare lung infection among a group of gay men in L.A. They would eventually figure out and call this AIDS. A few physicians and public health workers at the time in coastal cities were noticing these infections among otherwise young, healthy gay men in the years prior. But the report on this day in history, really put it on the map, put it on the record. Thankfully, they have treatments now, Jill, that are leading people with HIV to be able to lead, for the most part, much longer lives. All right, on this day in 1985, this was the clue at the beginning of the podcast. Who took the day off on this day in history, Jill?
One Ferris Bueller. No.
Ferris Bueller went
Bueller.
Bueller, where are you, Bueller? Bueller went to the Cubs game, had the whole thing, was in the parade, the whole deal. Now, officially in the movie, Jill, they don't actually say the date, but there are internet sleuths out there, and they have figured out, based on the footage used, because they shoot Ferris, or I should say Matthew Broderick, at the game, and then they show actual game footage. And they figured out that game footage in the film is from a June 5th, 1985 game, so they declared it as such. Now, I will say the scene was shot in September, so some argue that it was actually September on this day in history. We would like at Mo News to just confirm for all of you that we are going with the June 5th date as the day Ferris Bueller took the day off.
The other thing, Moshe, is that by the time that he had taken this day off, he had already taken 9 other days off. Remember, 9 times the principal,
yes.
Ed Rooney, figures out. So,
Rooney!
September would be quick, I think, for him to have taken 9 days off.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, Jill. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around in a while, you might miss it.
Fair point.
There you go. Bueller. By the way, one of the lines from the movie that's getting a lot of traction lately is Ben Stein as the teacher explaining tariffs to the class. And so with all the tariff headlines of late, like we have the highest tariff since the one that Ben Stein. Anyway, there's a lot of Ferris Bueller, I think, still to this day, Jill. And I will say this also as somebody who grew up in the Chicago area. One of the many films shot in the Chicago suburbs, like Home Alone, like Pretty in Pink, like Breakfast Club, that we take a lot of pride in the Chicago area. Jill, I will end here on this day in history. My parents got married. A happy 46th anniversary to Debbie and Charlie Wanunu in Fort Worth, Texas today. Very proud to be your son. Very proud of both of you. You've taught me many incredible lessons, including the importance of compromise. My parents have different perceptions of certain elements of life, but they always come together and they love us very much. And so it's actually one of the reasons why I think I can do this nonpartisan podcast, because one is on the left and one is on the right. And so I've found a way from a very formative age to try to figure out ways to find joint ground, things we can agree on.
Who knew we were going to get so deep at the end of this podcast? I love it.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Mom, tell Abba I gave you a shout out on the podcast because he doesn't listen to podcasts.
That's funny.
It's actually funny. My sister-in-law listens to the podcast. My brother does not. My mother listens to the podcast. My father does not. So spread word, folks. Spread word, Emily and Debbie.
Both of my parents listen, but my in-laws do not.
Got it.
And my brother, I do not believe listens, and nor do I don't know. I don't have a lot. It actually, we're
batting like 20% in our families, folks. But some of your families probably listen to the podcast, more members of your families than our members. But listen, at the end of the day, they all follow us on Instagram and they give us incredible support, and they're all getting it via like just audio is not a thing for everybody, right? In some cases, people are podcast people, and some people are not podcast people. So
I'm going to keep talking about my brother until one day he's like, do you do this a lot?
Yeah. Like, how many bombs are you dropping on me, Jill?
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store. The reviews help.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of your support, for spreading the word here. Keep spreading the word about the Mo News podcast. A lot of exciting things coming up on the premium podcast. And for all premium members, I should mention there's a workshop tonight on all things Middle East, Israel, Gaza, anti-Semitism. If you're a premium member, you will have gotten an email with a Zoom link. If you're not, become a premium member ASAP, mo.news/premium, so you don't miss it tonight.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.